You are watching the Aliorgana Festival of the Word Meet the Author series, and right now we've got another fabulous author for you. It is Vanessa Farrell. Hello, Vanessa.
Hello, Narissa.
So good to have you with us. Thank you for agreeing to be part of the festival this year. I love the fact that it's hybrid, and so we're not limited to you having to be on Montserrat with us. It'd be good if you were here, but even though you're not, you can still be. Now, Vanessa Farrell is a very Montserratian last name. You Montserratian?
Absolutely born and raised, and my navel string is somewhere in Plymouth under the ash.
Well, that's good. So, even more of a reason for you to be part of this. Now, let's jump straight into this book. First of all, I noticed that you are doing the book with, I see a familiar name on it, Charmin Greenaway. I think the last two festivals that I've done, she has released projects there, and I know she's in the mental health arena. Is that your background as well? And how did you all come together to do this project?
Well, Sharman and I go way back. We're friends from back home, got to know each other through our writings. My area of focus is public health.
Mm.
So there is some overlap. She is a nurse by training, and I have touched base with her on certain aspect of work that I've been doing in public health. But my focus is in public health. That's where my degree is. And I focus on population health and how we can work with population to make them healthy versus the individual approach to health.
Okay. So now, as we talk about that, the description on the book tells me that it is about our stories in terms of the Montserratian experience,
Mhm.
especially post volcano
Mhm.
being dispersed around the world. So tell us a bit of what are we going to discover in this book of Untold Stories?
So, untold stories, just as it says, a lot of the stories are untold, and it's the journey that so many monstrations could relate to, where they were uprooted by the volcano and had to go to these strange lands, and how they had to acclimate in so many various ways to fit into the culture, to
Mm.
fit into the work life, to fit into the religious spaces, which were from the book. You'll see that those are probably some of the most welcoming spaces. But it shares the journey of us monstration. Not every single one was uprooted by the volcano. There were few of the authors who were in the Untold Journeys book who were actually left Montserrat, including myself, before the volcano erupted. But it all talks about that path that we take as we leave our familiar home and have to go and take residence in another country.
Okay, sounds good. So now I am putting your experience in public health with Sharman. I think there's another author as well that's listed on the book. And I can imagine that there's some trauma related to some of these stories. Often it's said about the Monstration people that in a lot of ways we are still going through that trauma, that we haven't healed from it. Are you hoping that through this book, people might be able to see themselves and maybe finally get to move beyond those moments that have kept some people trapped?
Yeah, I think these stories that are shared, it's really a story of resilience. And I know that people don't like to use that word a
Mm-hmm.
lot, but it really shows that people can rise from, whatever situation that they're in. There is the capability of folks to really rise above that moment, to be able to, to overcome, to kind of fit into wherever they are. And there are lots of trauma that's laid out in the book. And as I read through the book several times, I realized that these trauma are real, and a lot of people don't talk about them. And from my experience, I see where people have left their young kids behind, and then they went off for a better life, to build a better life for their children. But the children who are left behind are actually traumatized because now they are separated from the only mother or father that they know. And now they have to be raised by a grandparent. And then there's a second level of trauma where then the mother may have gotten themselves settled and now the child could come. But when they go to be with the mother, it's another level of trauma because that mother may have start developing new relationship in their new home,
Mhm.
probably have a few kids in the mix now, maybe have a
Mm.
new mate. So now that child has to go and settle into that, and that's traumatic
Right.
for those children. So there's lots of trauma that folks talk about. And I know when we think about trauma, sometimes we think, the volcano, there's hurricanes, but there's so many things that's compacted. And as you said, there's a lot of trauma that people haven't healed from. And
Mhm.
before they could emerge from that trauma, something else comes on top of it. So
Wow.
you have you have the hurricane. You had Hugo, then you had the hurricane. You had Hugo, then you had the volcano, then you had
Mhm.
COVID. It's just so many things, and people
Mhm.
are not getting a chance to really talk about that particular catastrophic event before something is piled on top of it.
Okay. So, do you think that there may be a sense of, I suppose, if not healing, maybe a resolve that you hope would come from the book in terms of, because like you said, it just keeps piling up, and it seems
Mhm.
that with life it almost seems like the norm now, and not that
Mhm.
we want to make it normal, the
Mhm.
trauma,
Right.
but almost this, I suppose, a resolution that we can make it, and that you are capable of putting those pieces back together. What are you hoping will come out of people being able to read these stories?
It really shows that yes, people can rise above their situation. And what you will see through and through this book, and what we Monstratians are known for, is our strong faith in God. And
Mm.
every single chapter in the book talks about that person express their connection, their faith, and how their faith was one of the single thing that got them through this journey that they were on. They're probably still going through that journey,
Right.
but holding on to that faith. And I know that us Monstration, we are very much into our faith, and it's threaded throughout the storyline that faith was the single thing that kept people going.
Wow. So, are there any stories that you think are particularly memorable and remarkable that are in the book that we should look out for?
It's a roster of interesting stuff. There are folks who talk about their children and the trauma that their children had to go through, and as a parent, how they had to advocate in these new territories to make sure that their children got what it is they needed to survive, or to be a part of the new structure that they found themselves in. There are stories about people who became ill, who got diagnosed with a cancer diagnosis in a strange place. Like they're going up for their, checkup because the services that they were seeking were not available on Montserrat. So they asked to travel to a distant land to find medical care. And then you're met with a diagnosis of cancer, which for some people, the initial diagnosis is shocking. But you see that person go through that trauma. And then in the middle of that trauma, that person's spouse also becomes ill with cancer
Wow.
and dies while the person is going through their cancer treatment.
Oh,
But that
wow.
person is able to rise above that. And then there's stories of love. There's stories about people who, like, They didn't have any plan to go home back to
Mhm.
Montserrat, but someone just kept telling them, you're going back to Montserrat. And they decided at the last minute, let me just get a ticket and go, but I'm only spending a limited amount of time. And next thing you know, the person's like, come over to my house. You meet my sister. She's like, sister? I know you had a sister. I know you for 100 years. You never had a sister. And it so happened that they were able to go over to that person's sister's house and met the sister. Next thing you know, they fell in love, and it's a love story that is happening
Wow.
today. So there's so many different threads, and people talking about moving to London and going through the system and figuring out how do I get housing, and people coming from Montserrat to stay with them. There's one story where this lady had 14 individuals in one home with 2 bedrooms. Okay.
Wow.
And they survived. They were happy, and they did what they had to do because they were family. They had to stick together until things got better. And
Mhm.
eventually they were able to get housing that could accommodate the situation for the full family, or the extended family were able to get housing.
Mhm.
But it's the time where they had to like stick together, 14 people in one house. I can't seem to wrap
Wow.
my head around that, but they
I can
made
imagine.
it
So,
happen. Yes.
so this sounds almost like a good handbook for anybody going through something. Would you say that's the case?
It is. It is. It really shows you that people are resilient, even though you don't want to use that word, that people are
Mhm.
resilient. And I think people look back on their trials that they've had in the past and say, you know what? I made it through. God got me this far. I made it through. And whatever I'm facing, I'm going to get through it again.
That's brilliant. So tell us, Vanessa, how can we get in touch with you and get to know more about this book and some other projects you may be working on?
All right. So I can be reached at my email address is vifarrell, the number 333 at gmail.com. Or you can reach me on the web. My company's website is www.vihealthcoaching.com. It's there on the screen. Thank you very much. So in terms of the book is available on Amazon. You can go to Amazon and look for all Untold Journeys, and it will pop up, and you're able to order the book from Amazon if you're in Montserrat. Charmin Greenaway will be on Montserrat, and she has the book. I don't know the time frame. She's going to be there for the festival. She will have the books, and I think they are $40 Caribbean dollars that you can purchase the book for. And on Amazon, they are $20. You could also get the Kindle format, which is much cheaper. It's portable, and that's an option that you can also use for the book. So in
Brilliant.
terms of what's coming up, what's happening for me, I'm actually in the process of putting together another anthology here in the
Mm.
US Virgin Islands. And this anthology is a compilation of 20 women in business. So it's 20 inspiring stories of women from the Virgin Islands in business, leadership, and life. So it's an opportunity for women to tell their stories. We are hopeful that we'll be able to launch the book in mid-January, and I'm excited about that. And a few other writing projects that I have up my sleeve for early next year as well.
Okay, sounds exciting. Well, we will be looking out to see what else you've got coming up, Vanessa. But thank you so much for joining us at the Aligana Festival of the Word Meet the Author series. Vanessa Farrell, Untold Stories. We will put all the links in the description so you can be sure to connect with her and make sure you support the authors by purchasing a copy of their book in whatever format that you like. Thank you so much again, Vanessa.
Thank you for
Stay
having
tuned.
me.
All right. Stay tuned. There's more Aligana Festival of the Word coming up.